Hi everyone, welcome to Babbling Irons. We've seen yet another embarrassing defeat, one of many we've seen this year where we've conceded more than 4 goals. 5 goals today against Palace, a very limp performance. And I don't even think you can put that down to Thursday. Yes, the players put a lot of it in, but we've also seen the likes of Villa go to penalties against Lille. Actually, in Lille, come back to Birmingham and play today and not get their asses absolutely handed to them and play like we did. So, Sloth, before we get into all of the mucky stuff, which is the terrible state of West Ham's play today and other things surrounding it, what are your initial gut feel kind of reaction to the game?
Well, my guts are in a bit of a bad state since I went to a beer festival last night. So we'll move away from that topic. But aside from that, it's just I think Moyes has to go. Like he's been awful for a long time in terms of our league position. And you know I've backed him at times. But my gut reaction is that he really has to go, because you look at the fixtures we've got left, we need a reaction. We need something big to happen. If we even want to get any sort of decent end to the season now, we need something major to happen. And Moyes just doesn't look like he can get that. If we can continually capitulate against sides, then what's the point? What's the point of keeping him on? It's not going to be expensive to sack him now. He's got so little left on his contract. It's incredibly frustrating. And look, I'm not gonna let the players hide behind the fact that I think Moyes has been embarrassing for a good couple of months now. I think they've got to take a lot of criticism. They deserve it. You know, Fabianski was appalling today. He was not a Premier League standard today, unless he's going to be playing for Burnley or Sheffield United, you know, with the howlers that their keepers continually make. He was awful. And I think we've said it quite a few times, and people are very critical about Areola's communication and his commanding of the area. I don't know what on earth would make anyone think that it was a stronger asset of Fabianski's watching that today. He was useless. Zuma has to go. He's got one working leg. I would, to be honest, take any sort of fee we can get for him if it means we can move his wages on. I mean, Tony Gale was my commentator on the Peacock stream that I always get.
It's insufferable, isn't it, really, Tony Gale?
He is a pain in the backside. Look, he did the stadium tour and he's very articulate, but he just couldn't pull his tongue out of Moyes' backside if you had a team of men there to try like a bloody tug of war team there. It was really embarrassing. And, you know, he's talking about how the players need to take a look at themselves, and also the fact that they gave everything on Thursday. Well, look, there's a heavy amount of games, but the manager's the one who's chosen to have a small squad. He's the one who has decided to recruit, quite frankly, terrible signings in the likes of Phillips. And, you know, we know that Cornet was a little from column A, a little from column B in terms of being a Sullivan signing as well. But these are the players who he names on the bench. If you're not going to use them and you know, at least try and get a bit of competition in the squad, what's the point of even having them there?
Our bench should consist of 3 players, because that's all he's going to bring on. The rest is pointless. The fact that Orford is on there, the fact that Casey's there, Mubama's there, it makes no difference. These young lads are not going to come on. We should be looking at these lads in the idea of got a small squad now. we may need one or two of these next year. Let's give them a little run out in the last few games. Also, with 5-1 down as well. Should we actually turn to a couple of these lads and go in, you know what? Let's see what you're made of and see if you take a few bob next year. Instead, we don't. It's pointless. As you say, that the squad building is embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. For anyone saying, oh, Moyes has no say in who gets sold, of course he does. We're told vehemently by very well-known ITKs, David Moyes has veto rights on both inbound and outbound players. If you want to sit there and make excuses, fine, but don't do it from a place of delusion. Do it from a point of stuff that is known. And the truth is, like, you can't blame Moyes for his performance today. Of course you can. He sets up the tactics. He sets up the shape. He does the lineup. Now, if these players are absolutely knackered, again, that's on him because of what we're doing in recovery. Also, of course, on him. He's enabled this squad to be as it is. He's obliterated the squad because he wants a small squad. And as you pointed out rightly earlier, Sloth, on Twitter, it arguably points to his poor man management. He cannot handle a full 25-man squad. He can only handle around 16, maybe 18 players. That is his maximum. That's what he can deal with. And it's absolutely right. This comes in right at the right point. Shambles. It is a shambles. And it's a shambles led by Moyes. He has given us so much good. However, to sit here and not say that today and other days this season have not been his fault is ridiculous. And you and Frankie have been far more supportive of Moyes this year than I have. I've been very open in saying I've not enjoyed the football. Even when we've won games, I've been very consistent in saying that the football's not sustainable. The football is not good. And we have been lucky in games. The Brighton game, people keep turning to that, go, oh, we broke that voodoo. We did. But had Ario not pulled off worldies in that game, at least 3 of them, we could have lost that game at the end. There's other games you can point to this year where goalkeeper hasn't pulled a worldie. I say goalkeeper, Areola hasn't pulled off a worldie. We are not getting the result or the positive result. And had we not had the start of the season that we had, we would be facing a relegation battle, all only to be okay because we are not as bad as the bottom 3 that have come up this year. We are almost on par. We've almost conceded 70 goals this season. 70 goals is what we conceded when we got relegated under Avram Grant. And people were still sitting there trying to defend David Moyes and trying to always the players. It can't always be the players. I know it can't always be Moyes as well, but the two go hand in hand.
Well, he's supposed to be a strong defensive manager in terms of his coaching, and he was a defender himself, but you just look at that side and there's no possible way that they've been well drilled defensively. We've seen some really good performances this season, like Arsenal away, and then suddenly it's a completely different back line. Like the centre backs are switched around, and as we've said many times, there's no ramifications for poor form. There's also no there's no reward for good form, and Ogbonna had a good game gone from the starting lineup. It's incredibly frustrating because the only thing that has been a positive this season really are mostly our attacking elements. Areola, I'd say, has been a positive. He does make errors, but that happens with most goalkeepers now. I think Emerson's been fantastic, but he's also mainly been fantastic going forward.
His own goal was ridiculous. It was so soft in so many ways. It points to a complete lack of communication at the back, not knowing no one's there, throwing out a kind of limp leg. I think Fabianski, the way he comes towards the ball, doesn't help his decision. There's just so many embarrassing elements. And what really wound me up was 2 players who played today for Palace, who me and you were talking up quite a while when they were at their respective clubs before going to Palace, saying they should be at West Ham, destroyed us today. Both playing in kind of 10 position. Unless he would have cost us 8 million quid. You can't say at the time he wouldn't have taken us over Palace.
I remember I was having Reading fans tell me there's no release clause in his contract, and they were going, no, you're talking out your backside. This is just nonsense. And I'm going, no, there's a release clause. Like, it's very well publicized. No. But you look at the you look at the fact that some of the players who scored today combined would have all cost under £40 million. It's Elise for 8.5 million. Eze was what, 25 or 20, and then Mateta was about £11 million. And look, Mateta's had a difficult time at Palace because of various managers. Tony Gale was also going on about how Roy Hodgson was really unlucky because he had Eze and Elise injured for so long. And I think, yeah, but he's not. He is a very similar manager in terms of his approach.
And Eze is not playing the same way under Hodgson as he has in Glasgow. We've seen that the whole Palace team plays completely different. Now, where was the "be careful what you wish for" barrage after they got rid of Hodgson? There was some points when they were talking about getting rid of Hodgson. But this is why you don't tell people be careful what you wish for, because you can look embarrassing, and it can actually show that you had so little knowledge of what's happening within that football club, what's happening in that football club, and also how little you have an understanding of a potential manager that's coming in. And Palace, to their credit, deserve to win today. I'm not going to say that they won because we were bad. We were bad, but Palace won because they were that good. And they were that good because they had a manager who not only trusts his players, he also gives them the license to go and play football in the right way. And what's even more frustrating, again, another player we mentioned, Adam Wharton. We mentioned he should have been a player we should have been all over in January. We needed a midfielder. We've said it so long, we've needed a midfielder. We go and waste £7 million on Calvin Phillips, who, what a joke that is. Mate, I'm so frustrated. The baby's joining in.
It's incredibly annoying. I said it on the stream previously, but £7 million, you're having a laugh if you don't think that Blackburn would take that as a first instalment. And the money that they would save in terms of the wages that we're paying Phillips is massive. You've probably almost covered the transfer fee in terms of this season alone, just from the wages we paid Calvin Phillips and the loan fee. You've almost covered the Wharton transfer fee, and that should be a scary thought for anyone who, not just people who support Moyes and appreciate what he's done, because I massively appreciate him, but I think when you're looking at the cost of that and the finances and the recruitment involved, that should massively worry people, because if that's the sort of signing that we want to make, or we're going to go for Phillips over a young, talented Championship player, that should really worry people. It's not a case of, he's an ex-England international and he's playing for Manchester City. It's a case of he's a player who is woefully unfit. He is not playing football, but also he's not applied himself, and it's been so expensive to get him here, and he has completely flopped. So I do really hope that whoever comes in, and my opinion is that, I said on Twitter, I can't see us laying a glove on Manchester City or Liverpool in the games when we play them, because that's not what Moyes does. Moyes doesn't
the limpest glove ever. If we get a touch on him, it's going to be the limpest glove ever.
Moyes doesn't set up against these teams and go for it. He just doesn't do that. And everyone's entitled to their opinion and how you play football. And I'm not naive enough to think that we can just go to Manchester City and play attacking football and not ship 5 or 6 goals. But the point is that you want to see players try, and you want to see a game plan implemented. Now, if you play well and you end up losing 2-3-1, it's not an issue against the top teams, let's face it, because you can say, we played well. But if you go and you at least give it a go, at least you have a chance. At least you've made an attempt. And you look at Palace last week going away to Anfield. When was the last time that we had an away performance at Anfield under Moyes that looked like that that looked like an organised team.
Go back to Everton. He just did it. He just doesn't go for it. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
He's within him, and John makes a good, great kind of. It's a good question, and quite frankly, they're two managers that I would like. Thiago Motta, I think, has been astounding this year. However, Juventus are most likely going to be the team that takes him. So I think that one has slipped us by. I think again, if anyone wanted Motta beyond what Juventus are now getting, that's a move you had to make in January when his profile was hot, but not as hot as it is because they've sustained it. Honus, whilst he has signed a new contract, I believe that's more in line to keep or to enable Stuttgart to get a really good kind of release clause out of him, as opposed to the minimal one they would have got. And quite frankly, I think when you look at Stuttgart and the way they play, it's everything West Ham fans want.
Yeah,
in terms of the attacking play, the level sometimes of the pragmatism that there is sometimes, and also the way they defend. They defend with the ball, and they defend by attacking the opposition out of possession. So they're very kind of how we play against Bayer Leverkusen, essentially. And the little one agrees. Apologies.
I think the thing is that when you look at the managers out there, people give you this idea that there's no one better, or Honus is a really great manager, as you're saying, and for anyone who's watched the channel or followed me long term, that Stuttgart are like my second. They're my German team. They're not my second team, but whenever I watch German football, I try and watch Stuttgart because I like how they play. I tend to like their players, but I also just like their ethos, and they have ties to West Ham as well with Hitzelsperger. So they are a very interesting club, and their recruitment is exactly the sort of recruitment that I want us to move towards. That sort of style of signing players who have a physical profile, or they have an athletic profile, and signing very smartly. It's something that I think we need to move towards. And whether that just means going out and signing half the Stuttgart players with a release clause like Ito, Guirassy, and their manager Honus, if he has some sort of release clause, that's exactly what I kind of think we should be doing. They are a very well-run club. The issue is that they have Champions League football next season, and is he really going to want to leave for a team who potentially don't even have any form of European football next season? That's the big question for me. I think you look at the other managers out there. The cliche one, and I know it became a bit of a meme for a while, is Will Still. I think he's a fantastic manager. I won't have anyone say otherwise. I think he is, with the assets and the resources he's got at Stade Rennes, he's doing a sensational job. And although he became a meme for a little bit, and it kind of derided off the achievements of getting Rennes, up in European spots potentially, it's a really fantastic job he's doing. There's a great piece on the League One Uber Eats YouTube channel where it follows him for the day coaching, and it's so funny watching a sort of West Ham fan cliche London accent, and then he suddenly switches to fluent French. Like it's brilliant, and that's the sort of manager that I think would thrive. Someone with a bit of a point to prove, someone who loves the club, but also at the moment he plays a similar sort of counter-attacking football, but he shows so much more variation in how he can play. And it's not just the fact that it's counter-attacking, he can switch it up, and he relies on these dynamic wingers as well. With players like Kudus and Bowen, he would have an absolute field day. He would be sensational.
I think for most managers, they'll look at this squad and, on the face of it, it's a great kind of team. If we were to sell Piquet, yes, it's going to be £85 million, but the money that gives you in which to go and buy players, especially if you're used to buying inexpensive players and bringing them on, or even going to the loan market. Look how he got the best out of Babbling. He hasn't really worked from Monaco. again, it's a different style of play, and Will still has managed to work out how to get him to work and how to get him to play. And there's another that may probably will is going to get linked heavily because he's going to be out of contract, and that's Fonseca. That's another one.
Well, Fonseca's a brilliant manager, and you look at his signings that he's made while he's been at Lille, or even just what he's gotten out of Jonathan David, who many people were telling me was crap this season, and he had a period of time where he struggled. But look at how Fonseca's turned that around. Look at how well he's done, and the bounce back that he has had in that Lille side. He is likely going to leave, and it looks like he's probably going to be off to Napoli to replace Osimhen. But that speaks volumes about how highly rated he should be. And you're right in that Will Still's not experienced, but there's also a fine line between he's got 2 seasons of management. He's got an assistant management that he's been in the game for quite a few years. So where do you draw the line at that? If you're succeeding and you're doing well, why do you need the experience?
He's about 15 years worth of experience. His time in when you look at his time in Belgium, then obviously when he's come over to France with Rennes, but to a point, it's Alonso experience. Alonso was in Syria. In the I think he was at Real Sociedad at B up until 18 months ago.
Yes.
18 months ago, he then went to Leverkusen, turned their season around, got them into Europe. Look at him this season. Whilst he was a player and has that wealth of experience of being under great managers like Jose Mourinho, I'm pretty sure he played under played under Guardiola at Bayern Munich, I believe, not Ancelotti. Benitez, he has this wealth of knowledge from being a player and playing at the top end. But as we've seen, Frank Lampard was an exceptional player. Steven Gerrard, an exceptional player. Just because you're a good player doesn't mean it translates to a good manager. And he is inexperienced. But we saw in the game on Thursday, this inexperienced manager saw that his team was struggling. After 26 minutes or so, he made a change and brought on Tapsoba. Still weren't great, but he made a change. At half-time, he then made a double change, again, to change it. Today, David Moyes came out and said, we were atrocious in the first 30 minutes. What was his reaction? Nothing. Sat back and watched as it progressed and went to them 4-0 before half-time. And, it's 4-1 at half-time. But then he brings on 2 players, and he brings on Ben Johnson, who puts him into defence, and he brings on Aaron Cresswell for Bonner. So his reaction was, I'm not saying we should go for it, but again, it just highlights the manager that we have in that when we are losing, we're losing badly. Rather than trying to make something positive and go, you know what, lads, look, we've lost the first half, we may not come back into this, but let's go and win the second half. Let's go and be positive and try something for our next game. Let's have something to hold on to and to grasp onto. We did something better in that half, but we didn't.
Part of the reason that I would sack Moyes tonight is because you look at the contract situations with the likes of Johnson. I would just be saying to him, look, we're going to get a new manager in, and we're going to try. You don't have to make a statement with a manager. If as long as you have an ambitious appointment, or even just you have someone who's coming in with a clear vision of how he wants to play football, that can speak volumes for a player. That can mean a lot to them. So if you have someone who comes in, says to Ben Johnson, look, I want to see what you're made of. We can give you 12 months. If you are determined to have a season of first team football and playing more, we can give you 12 months. And then sit down again halfway through the season. If you're unhappy, whatever happens. Now, look, people might say, oh, but there's not much logic in that resale wise, or with the money that you can get from it, it could be potentially just tiding over painting over the cracks kind of things. But that's not the point. The point is that had we had European football, then we would need a homegrown, home-trained, club-trained academy player. And we just don't really have that. Does anyone think that if we'd kept Moyes, or if we keep Moyes next season, things are going to change with the academy setup beyond what they are. They're not, because we don't have a manager who is looking at the talented players that we have and putting them on the pitch. Look at Mubama, you know, he scored, he had a goal chalked off against Brentford, and in my opinion, it was the wrong decision. However, since then, he's not had any real time on the pitch, and people can say, oh, he's not up to it. But what have we done? What have we done with him? Is the manager saying, actually, you know what, we need to loan him out. We need to make sure we're using him in the cup games. No, that's how you utilize a squad. You need to be thinking like that. And we just don't have a manager who is capable or proactive enough to do that. And it is incredibly frustrating. You look at someone like Fonseca, he does like to promote you through. And even look at how he's managing, is it Angel Gomez?
Yeah, Angel Gomez, the way he's transformed that kid who basically got dumped out of Man United, pretty much had the world at his feet, then told, actually, you're not good enough, left. And the way he's developed that young kid, he doesn't get talked about enough, but he has been brilliant for Lille over the last few seasons. And again, it's all credit to Fonseca, what he's done with him. And they say he will develop young players. He has that level of pragmatism, which I think many would be comfortable with. However, he's also likes to be aggressive, likes to play attackable, likes to have the ball. And it's not something we have with Moyes. And, you know, to your point about, well, look what we've done with Mubama. We've basically played him and pretty much put him on without a prayer. He's gone on. He hasn't had a prayer. He hasn't had a chance to be successful. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, he hasn't necessarily done himself any great favours. However, I will combat with that. We're very much a team and we're very much a style, which is, this is how we play. You either fit it or you don't. If you don't, I ain't going to bother. If you don't, if I've all of a sudden decided I don't like you, like with Cornet, that's it. You're not even my consideration at all anyway, not even in my peripherals. Even Ben Johnson has alluded to that when he talks about Moyes is very close with certain players, and in particular the ones in his 11, the ones that he feels he can rely on and lean on. The rest, he doesn't really talk to that much. And that's Ben Johnson being polite. But we've heard other rumours in the past about Moyes with not necessarily being very, I guess, open or kind of willing to put himself out there with the youth team, wanting to know what they're about, what's kind of going on with him. Yes, he goes to a few games here or there. But again, those players don't play. Ollie Scholes had a blinder of a debut, never to be seen since. The kid can play left back, can play left wing, he can play midfield. We've not seen him, despite all of our injuries, we've not seen him play. Orford is being talked up as the next Declan Rice. He's had a debut, not seen him since. It's all of these cases where people will always point to, oh, look how many debuts he's given. Yeah, but debuts are lip service. Unless you follow it up, it's lip service. You're not doing anything. You're just going, no, but I've given all of these debuts. Like, yeah, okay, but did you follow it up? This kid had a good. When has he played since? Oh, he hasn't. Right. Look at Flynn Downs. He brought in Flynn Downs because he wanted defensive midfielder, played an attacking midfielder because he can press from the front. Basically, that's the only reason Flynn Downs plays an attacking midfield role, was because he didn't care what happened on the ball. It was, I need you to press from the front. You need to be my forward press from midfield. That's why I'm playing you there. And then Flynn Downs, when he got on the ball, then was a fish out of water. Yes, he's done well at Southampton, but I still don't think, in all fairness, he's done any more than, say, what we saw Adam Wharton do. And I think Adam Wharton played far better than him in the Championship. Adam Wharton is bossed us today.
In a far worse side.
Yeah. Flynn Downs isn't the same player as him. And also got to remember, Flynn Downs is 24, 25 now. I think maybe 20, about 25. Next year, if Southampton come up, we should take the 20 million. And in fact, maybe say, I'll tell you what, we'll take Kyle Walker-Peters off you and you can have Flynn Downs as part of the deal. Like, he's a great lad, Flynn Downs. It's fantastic that he came to the game midweek. And again, that was a storm in a teacup, in my opinion. The reaction afterwards about a certain player not being there. But I would take the money for Downs, say thank you very much and move on. Because I do think if we take 20 million, you can put that 20 million pounds towards Youssef Fofana, who's on his last year of his deal. Yes, Milan are looking at him, and there's every chance that if Milan go for him, they'll get him. But if you've got a player like Youssef Fofana last year's contract, it could cost you 20 million pounds, and you've got that from selling Flynn Downs, I would snap your arm off in an absolute millisecond, because Flynn Downs will, and it's going to hurt some people's feelings, will only ever be a squad player at West Ham. Yeah. Youssef Fofana would and will be a starter. That's the difference. So I look at it and that we've been pouring the market and going for players that we shouldn't have, and certain players that have been brought to have been rejected. And we are in this position, one, because of David Sullivan. There's no two ways about it. We are in this position, but it has been aided and abetted by Moyes because he has vetoed certain players leaving. He has also vetoed certain players coming in. So this squad over 4 years has been built by David Moyes. And what we saw today was a David Moyes squad. There's no two ways about it. It's David Moyes' squad. This is the squad he wanted and what he's built. Because me and you said Ogbonna should have gone last summer. We love Ogbonna, but he should have gone in the summer because again, his age was at that point. We should have got. He's talked about he likes championship players. He's bought the likes of Jagielka and made him a player. Me and you've talked up no end Jacob Greaves at Hull, who has been doing brilliant at either left centre back, within a 3 or a 4, or playing left back. A prime example of a player we could brought up, Adam Wharton. You can't go out and buy a whole squad of championship players and try and expect to be at the top end of the league, but you can go and buy some very good young players from that league, and they can help you build up. Over time. Look at Bowen, the way he's developed. We probably never would have said he would be at this level. We thought he would be good, but maybe not at the level he's got to. And it's the same that can happen from some of these championship players. Victor, look at
Alex Scott performing. It's incredibly frustrating, and the icing on the cake for me is when he backs someone like Cresswell, who wanted to leave, down tools, and refused to train. Also, he could get a move to Wolves, but we had Maatsen lined up as an option, potential to come in, and he vetoed it. Didn't want it. He wanted to stick with Cresswell. And look, we may have got him in on a loan. We may have had an option to buy. It may have been a dry loan with no option. But the issue is that a manager, instead of looking at a homegrown, exciting young player who has gone to Borussia Dortmund, and he's had a couple of off games here and there, but it's because he's playing regular football. Aside from that, he has been absolutely smashing it. Yet he can't get in a West Ham side above Cresswell. And look, Emerson doesn't have to drop down. Maatsen can play on the wing, so you can have all these options. We don't have a left winger. Why were we not in for him in the January window? Moyes made these baffling quotes beforehand about how he didn't feel like there was quality in the January window that could add to us. And you have to question yourself, okay, then why have you let 2 players leave? And why are we not looking to at least get a loan in on that left-hand side? What is the possible downside of having that? Apart from somehow managing to sign a second loan as bad as Calvin Phillips, that is the only possible negative. But to be honest, if there's one club that could have 2 terrible loan signings, it's probably us. But it's just incredibly frustrating when you look at the types of deals or types of players out there and signings that have been made, and we just don't do anything. You look at the integration into the squad, and I like to have a small squad. You mentioned it earlier. I said about him failing in terms of man management. That's why he failed at Man United. He can't keep a side competitive because he doesn't rotate his players enough. And look, it might work for one season if you're focusing on 1 or 2 competitions. But when you're trying to progress in the Europa League and you come up against quality sides, it's going to take it out of you. The issues are huge. And yeah, small squads are for small minds. That is a very good little analogy. I think it's very hard to try.
Just give a couple of little bangers every now and then.
It is very true. If Bowen had got injured at some point in the season, what would we have done? We'd be absolutely screwed. It
took Kudus 10 games to get into the team. He banged in a hat-trick against Ajax, clearly in red hot form, and then he comes to West Ham.
Well, Kudus has even had AFCON. Kudus went off to AFCON, so we didn't have him for a few weeks. And when Paqueta got injured, we fell to pieces. That should speak volumes about where this squad is, but where Moyes is as a manager in his inability to, work with a squad of players. And Aguerd was his signing in the summer. Aguerd was his big centre-back signing. That was Moyes' top target for that position. He's turned on him. So you have to question the defensive recruitment when we could have potentially sold him, and you give Zuma the captaincy. This is a player whose off-field antics, got him much derision, but you have to question why has he been given the captaincy, because he isn't a leader. He's never been a leader at any of the clubs he's been at. He's a very good defender on his day, but he's also got a debilitating leg injury. So why are we giving this man the captaincy?
And the worst part is very small rumour, but there was rumour, however, that we had offers in from him from Saudi Arabia, obviously, as well as again in the summer. We said no to both. And in particular, we said no to about Zuma, despite him having 2 years in his contract and a fairly decent offer, if what I was told was true. You can never tell with rumours, because they are rumours until proven otherwise. But he said no, because I want to make him my captain. And it's those kind of things that are baffling. It's like, yes, I know you don't like to change your squad very much. You don't like a big squad. However, you have 2 years left on a player with, as you say, a debilitating knee, who has had all this controversy. You can move him out. You've got a player in Aguerd who is, again, if we were to believe rumours, was incredibly vocal last season about his dislike of playing in the Moyes system. And when results were really going badly and the team players were coming together, he was one of those. There was another player who's since left us, who is also part of that group, who apparently went to the board and went above Moyes to say, we need to make changes. And that was changes in the dugout. That fell on deaf ears because, quite frankly, they weren't going to sack Moyes last year unless it really got to a point where that money looked a problem. So why would you not then go, I probably need to clear those two out and start again? They could have done that in the summer. However, they went this pig-headed route of going, no, we're going to continue. 6 months later, they're looking to get rid of Aguerd. They're also now talking about, we need to get rid of Zuma. It's like, you had your chance. This is something, again, we've talked about time and time again, Sloth, and we'll probably say it till we're blue in the face. We never know when to sell. We always hang on to go, but they've been a good player for us. Yeah, they have been. But are they going to be the player we need next year? Football is ruthless. Things can change in a matter of 10 games. In 10 games, a player could be surplus to requirements for one reason or another. And you have to think along those lines of, well, Zuma, you can't rely on him for a season. He's had all this controversy. His knee's a problem. To me, that is just red flags all over the shop and of, I need to sell this player this summer. Because whilst on his day, he's absolutely fantastic, I have to wait for that day. And I don't always know when that day is coming. And because of I'm always waiting for that day, I'm also waiting for the mistakes. And we've seen a good few of them this year. And part of those mistakes have come by the absolute way that we play and that we invite so much pressure to the point of we do have one of the worst defences in the Premier League. Only Sheffield United have a worse defence than us in this season. I've already said it once today, but we're almost at the 70 goals conceded mark. We conceded 70 when we got relegated on Frank Grant. Just shows the ridiculous heavy lifting that strike force have had to do in which to kind of grind us out and get us out of this thing. If we had a defence that matched that attack, we wouldn't be sitting here complaining right now. We'd be sitting here saying, you know what, Moyes probably doesn't deserve a statue because we'd probably be pushing for a Champions League spot. And that's not exaggerating. We probably would because of the way our attack plays. If we'd have conceded less, very simple terms, you don't concede, you don't lose. So if we
just look at the Newcastle game, if we'd won that, we'd be in with a very good chance of getting Europe. But it's the fact that we just capitulated and we had a manager who just didn't really react to what was happening. It's very frustrating when we're both sat here saying, look, it's not a case of Moyes hasn't done a great job, but it's the fact that there are so many areas of the job that he's done which need improving. And it's not enough that we have just got one season out of Stuyton with Moyes. It's the fact that we have these assets available to us. We just haven't utilised them, and it is really disappointing when we sit here and, you know, Palace were fantastic today, and I think I really hope we're not giving the impression that we aren't giving Palace credit, because they definitely deserve a ton of credit, and Glass is doing a great job at having turned them around. He's got them playing good football, and they look very solid. They have a very good starting 11, and they're going to have exactly the same problems that we have in terms of they now just need to go out. They'll have money coming in for a lease, I'm sure. Like they're apparently PSG are interested, so they're going to have a player who's moving on. They're going to try and keep very strong assets that they already have, and they've got to try and build to take them to another level, or at least try and solidify the fact that they want to start competing for a top half place. So they're going to have a similar job to us, but the difference is that they always look like they have a plan. They always look like they're working on finding the next player who could be the next Zaha, could be the next Elise, could be the next Eze. But we never really seem to do that. And until this summer, it's always been that we sort of stumble into deals, and people go, "Oh yeah, but Moyes signed on Arnautovic." Yeah, which that.
You said that was Vidic.
Sorry, he made him into a forward. Sorry, yeah. But the issue is that, you know, he doesn't sign players well, and when you're going into such a huge summer, you're going to need a manager who, you know, works well with recruitment, but then also has a plan. And when you go into the next season with hopefully a strong squad in depth, I have no faith that he's actually going to rotate those players in to get the best out of them. We need a manager who's going to do that. And whether that's Hones, whether that's Fonseca, whether it's Will Still, it has to be someone that has a plan, has a style of play, but also has adaptability. And if they know that, say, Bowen picks up a knock and we lose out on Edson Alvarez because he's suspended, so we have to make changes to the side. You have to be able to do that. And to his credit, Moyes did that against Leverkusen in the home leg, but he doesn't do that enough. And you look at the away leg in which we had to make sure that we were making changes based on these knock-on effects, and we just didn't. We went there, conceded 2 very poor goals, and there was no reaction from him. There was at no point an issue that he looked at when Antonio tore Tar apart. There was none of that. I'm going, okay, right, pace is really hurting them at the back. Maybe we should look to do something there. Maybe we can target that a bit more. He didn't do that. And yeah, you can say he didn't have he didn't have players on the bench you can trust. But if you said to Maxwell Cornet, like, you know, if he'd been utilised more, because we know there's a player there. I don't want to hear people say there's not. There is 100% a player.
He performed at Burnley last season. There was clearly
look, the injury may well have done something to him, but the fact is that if you're going to play someone who is tired or is, you know, unfit, or you're not even going to rotate someone in, there's no point in having them there.
Yep.
But also, if you're looking at the January window, if we were looking at a player on that left side to come in with pace and ability on the ball, they would have made a huge difference in that Leverkusen away tie, because they would have stretched Leverkusen and ran Tar ragged. It's incredibly annoying. But he's come out today and he's saying, oh, you know, he came out the other day and said, I like a small squad. I didn't feel like there was players out there. That is exactly the problem with Moyes.
He then follows it up with, but we're playing 57 to maybe 60 games in a season, and that is paid to us. It's like, so you have acknowledged the problem, and yet you're also saying, but I'm ignoring it. I don't care. I'm just going to run this because that's the way I've always ran and it's the way I've always worked. But the reason it's always worked is because you've never been, and to be honest, it's going to sound harsh, you've never been successful. Bar winning the Europa Conference League, he's not been successful for a manager in terms of winning trophies. This is why I've said, and we had the conversation the other day in our WhatsApp chat, he's a floor raiser. He's not a ceiling smasher. And people may point, we've done these things at West Ham, that smashes ceilings, but it's not. Because if you really boil it down, and if we're really brutally honest, every team we faced in Europa League and in Europa Conference League that we beat, we should have beat, based on the players that we had. Sevilla was a very close game. However, based on how we played, especially in that second leg, we should have beat them. Right, that's probably one where I'd say, yeah, fair enough. That's probably one where is a contentious one. And when you talk about, say, Bayer Leverkusen, contentious to saying we should beat. Every other team, and I include Leon in that, we should have beat, and we did. So we did our job. But when we come against teams that are on a level or maybe just a slight piece above, he can't beat them. And the reason he can't beat them, because again, this fixation on a small squad, the fact that he won't go out and get the necessary and essentially stretch his ability, to try and operate with a bigger squad. He's not been able to smash through that ceiling. Because if we would have gone and won into Europa League, I'd absolutely say, yeah, he smashed the ceiling for us. And he's done it. He's absolutely smashed the ceiling. He's put us in Champions League, some place where we've never, ever been. He's done something that none of us would have ever expected. But because of his sheer belief that I can only work with a smaller squad, or I prefer a smaller squad, that has killed us. And that's why he would never smash a ceiling. That's why he never worked at Man United. Because other ones look at squads as these are my players that I'm going to utilise for the season to help me win stuff. He looks at it as essentially extra baggage he has to deal with. I just want a small core players, and we're going to try and nick this. We're going to try and maybe get this. And I have massive appreciation for him. I know it doesn't sound like I have appreciation for him, but I do for what he's done at West Ham, because he has raised the floor. However, once you start doing that, you always have to continue to either sustain it or raise it again. And he's hit his limit. I think the club is on its end of its cycle. We can see that with a number of players in their ages. Fabianski's 39, Soufal is 31, Zuma's 29, Ogbono's 34, Emerson is 29. We had in midfield 2 29-year-olds in Souček and in Ward-Prowse. We had a 34-year-old playing up front as a centre forward. When you start to look at that and you go, this is a man that when he first came in, back in that 4 years ago, says he wants a young and hungry team. What part of that team screams young and hungry? Don't care what people have to say about injuries or suspensions. It's pointless, because half of that team that I named were either first team last year or been in part of the first team this year. There's no young and hungry about this team at all.
Well, you look at. I mean, Gaurav 10 put in the chat about players in the Championship, and the gold that lies there. And we said it all along. There are so many players. We did the homegrown thread over the season, and even if you think about January, when we were supposedly given the chance to sign Rowe from Norwich, I know he's picked up an injury, but there's no way that you can say that would have happened regardless. He could have come in, and at least he'd have given us that pacey outlet. You look at Philogen at Hull. We've already spoken about Greaves, but there are players there. Whittaker, Sara at Norwich. There are so many players who give us an option. Somerville went down, and there were teams who were interested in signing him. If you're telling me that we couldn't have got him away from Leeds and utilized him on that left-hand side, I'm going to call you, I'm going to say you're a liar, because I think if you turned his head and said, we're going to put in £25 million and we're going to offer you Europa League football, you're going to tell me he wouldn't want away? Look, Leeds are a big club, but at the end of the day, they would have been, it would have been a decision between playing European football or Championship football. And no player is going to say, no, I'm going to stick to the Championship unless they're from that club's academy system and they're a fan. It is incredibly frustrating. When you look at Whittaker, he could have come in, and Plymouth probably would have wanted to keep him for improving their chances of survival, and which they've already done. Now, they have a player in Whittaker who is versatile, over 6 foot, very quick, fits the mold of what Moyes wants in a player. And we could have easily approached them and said, look, we can even loan you him back, but we want to sign him. There are all these gems in the Championship that we should be looking at, but I just don't have any faith that Moyes will do it. And it's not, people will point at the Bowen signing and say, look, he does do it, which is fine, but even a broken clock is right twice.
And let's be really, really honest about that. When we were signing Bowen and signing Souček, when he was asked in press conference about it, I don't really know about either of the deals. I'm not really involved in them. I've left with David Sullivan and the board. He came in where West Ham were already working on those deals. Yes, he said, I want this type of player, but these were players we looked at, we'd kind of profiled, and players that we kind of had ready if we wanted to move for them. And we went for them. Moyes wasn't really as involved as people say. And again, it took Bowen a while to kind of find his feet and to get, the chance really to do it. It's just incredibly frustrating because, again, we look at another season where you go, what could have been? And whilst the board there's a really heavy burden on the board as to how badly it went. One thing I will say is, and let's wrap this up as well, because we've gone on a bit, and I think it's been a bit cathartic probably for everyone, and having this bit of a moment and this bit of a group therapy session. We'll try and wrap it up here. But the one good thing about not spending in January, and this is the only positive I can take, is when you look at the tweet that Sean put out earlier about West Ham's incredibly good financial kind of report they're going to have this coming year. West Ham are also about to, if we go by what's been said, there are rumours that we are going to have a new board member taking 25%. So that 25% is going to bring new capital, new money, potentially also new direction in terms of how we're going to start moving forward. Because if anyone, they're coming in with the view to eventually purchase West Ham, you're not going to pay nearly 20 million pounds, sorry, 200 million pounds even, to take 25% and to allow David Sullivan, with all of his shenanigans, and an absent David Kretinsky to have equal say. You're going to want to go in there in the same way that Ratcliffe has gone in at Man United. It's like, I'm coming in because I'm going to buy this club eventually. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to come in now because you guys are not ready to shift on in terms of your kind of shares because you're maybe expecting value to go up. But I'm not allowing you to be absent and I'm not allowing you to run it as you have, because the way that you've capitulated at the end of this season is a joke. The way that you've
even just on that matter, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're bad businessmen, because that's just a falsity. You can't get to that position and be called a bad businessman to a degree. I think there are some who you can do that to, but the issue I have is that you look at how they're running the club, and obviously there's an end goal there. They want to make a huge profit. Now, what would get you the best chance of making an obscene amount of profit from West Ham? It's if they manage to push and keep pushing for those European spots. If in January we'd gone out and say we'd sign Serhou Guirassy, or we'd sign Terem Moffi from Nice, or another striker who fits our mold. If we'd done that, that player comes in and wins us an extra 10 points. From games we've capitulated in, they hypothetically mean 3 points for us. You're then looking at a much higher league finish. You're looking at the fact we've got revenue streams from Europe. You're looking at a possible market increase. And it's all these things that should be making you a huge amount of money and taking off the onus on the owner to then invest their own personal money. So a huge thing that is bugging me is when we're talking about these new investors, and you've got to say that if I was an investor, I wouldn't want to come anywhere near West Ham and David Sullivan, because he clearly doesn't have the mindset of progressing the football club to make money. And look, football is a notorious money pit. But if you're looking at the fact that West Ham could potentially gain their stadium and all the land around it, all those kind of things, there's a huge chance that they're going to be able to make a ton of money off it. And you have to really scratch your head at the fact that they're not going out and signing players. They're not trying to push on, because that's the way you're going to maximize the valuation on the club. And you're not just talking about, it's potentially a few million more. And I know that sounds really daft, but in the world of football, you're talking about 50, potentially 100 million pounds, many hundreds of millions of pounds. I'm not going to say we're worth £1 billion, because we're not at all. But if it meant the difference between, say, 600 million pounds or 800 million pounds, that's massive. And for an owner to not be reaching and trying to do that, it's such a toxic mess that we have a manager who's turning down signings, but we also have an owner who isn't using his brain and is just getting little whispers in his ear. Oh, I don't think that's a very good deal. I don't think you should do this. I don't think. The fact is that you could have spent £20 million. You could have given us an option, and at least you tried. It could maybe even just mean
you can say, "I told you so" after it flops. But this is the point, right? As you're saying, we have the facilities in which to do the right things, or we've at least started putting some of those building blocks with the introduction of Steiten and all of his scouting staff and etc. However, there are still too many people being involved that shouldn't be involved. And again, as I say, anyone coming in who's going to be paying probably around 200 million for 25% of West Ham should and will not, in my opinion, be doing that with under the control or the equal share control that has been alluded to with David Sullivan. I just don't see anyone coming in with the future aspirations which to buy the club, who are most likely going to be the ones footing the bill for the new training facilities. We're going to come in and going, yeah, no, that's right. Here's 200 million. Here's the capital. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. A little bit for transfers. You carry on running the club as you have, because obviously it's been doing really well especially in the last 6 months. Your decisions in January were absolutely top notch with the manager and the players you brought in. So you continue in that vein. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, quite frankly, this summer, things are so perfect as such to make a new change at West Ham. David Sullivan is rumoured to want to take a bit more of a back burner. He's got his misses. Apparently, his health, obviously, he's never been that great because of, his heart condition that he's had. And it's probably, again, he seems to go to all the games a lot less. Let's not read into that too much, but he seems to be going a lot less, obviously. He's lost his long-time business partner, and his daughter's slowly looking to edge out. David Moyes' contract is up at the end of the year. There's never been a more perfect sign or time to say that there is and could be change at West Ham. We don't know quite how positive or negative that change will be, because we can't read into the future. However, something new is needed, I think, at West Ham for us to capitalise on what has been built over the last 4 years. Incredibly appreciative to David Moyes for the last 4 years. However, it is time to go. And I wouldn't wait to the end of the season. I don't see the point. If we're not going to give it to him, why keep him around? The season is effectively over. I don't think we're going to get Europe when you look at the last 4 games. I'm not saying I'm giving up, but I would at least say, let's move the manager on. Let the world know as such that we are now in the market for a new manager, and then start those conversations now. Don't do it behind the guy's back. Let's just make it very clear that we are making a change. Actually appreciate it. And I think in the summer, Scotland are most likely going to look for a new manager. Steve Clarke's on a terrible run with Scotland. If they have that run continues into Europe, into the Euros, do you really think Scotland are not going to be turning around to David Moyes and saying, would you like to be our manager? It's been rumoured for a while now. David Moyes wants to is toyed with the idea of taking a bit of a step back from club football. It will be it's just, there's so many things that falls into place that makes sense that David Moyes to move on. Potentially going to take a Scotland manager's role, as maybe it's his last role. There's not going to be much in terms of expectation, but he is the most successful Scottish manager going at the moment. So why would they not be interested in taking him? And West Ham can really start this 4 to 5 year project that Tim Starton referred to, and actually start giving the project to the guy who is going to be the one, or should be the one, pushing it forward, with the likes of Mark Noble as well.
Yeah.
For me,
I'd be sacking him tonight. I'd be sacking him tonight, and then you either let Heitinga or Kevin Nolan manage till the rest of the season, maybe even Noble. I don't know if he'd even be interested in it, but you let them take you into the end of the season. But you say, look, guys, this is your Hail Mary. You're putting yourselves in the shop window for other jobs now, because come the end of the season, you're probably not going to be here, but put yourself in the shop window, do something. And you have to look for a reaction. I don't think Moyes is going to be able to get anything from these players anymore in terms of I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love us to sit here in 4 games time and be going, oh well, wow, we've managed to clinch Europe with a 12-point.
Yeah. We managed to get 3 wins out of 4.
but it's not going to happen realistically. So I think I want to massively thank Moyes for what he's done in his time at West Ham. I'm not going to sit here and call him a monster like certain other channels, because I think it's horrible. But I think he deserves a lot of credit, but that credit doesn't come without criticism. And I think, unfortunately, today should really be the last time he is stood there for West Ham.
Yeah, I do think today is a bit of a curtain caller. It is kind of, thank you, Moyes, but goodbye. He's given us some very good memories. We've seen quite a lot this year that I think he's at the end. I don't think he's lost the players. However, I do think they've lost faith in him. I don't think they've lost him, because I think they still do like him as a man and as a person. But I do think that the players have lost faith, and we see that when they are allowed to play front foot football, they seem to play with energy. They seem to play with a bit of verve. They seem to have a completely different outlook in games. But as we are, I think we need to part ways. So final point, and then we'll end today.
No, I think that's pretty much it. It was a disaster today. Forest Palace were excellent, and take nothing away from them. I think they've recruited really well, and it's shown. Yeah, they don't have the fixture congestion that we do, but I think that is a bit of a scapegoat when you look at the fact that they are utilising their squad. They've been injury hit, and they've had a lot of changes over the course of the season and last summer. But it's a very tough one to take, and I think we need to be looking to the future. As I said, I would be expecting or hoping for the club to put out a certain tweet with a flag tonight, but I don't hold out much hope that David Sullivan's going to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. Little One also agrees, clearly. But yeah, guys, everyone, thank you for joining. The comments, it's been amazing seeing all the comments coming in. Sorry we haven't been able to put everyone's up. It's been a bit of a cathartic rant more than an observation of the game. We do think, yes, Moyes should go. We're both very, very thankful for what he's given us over this time and how he's raised the floor from where we were. But we don't need to be completely reminded of where we were. We want to concentrate on where we are and where we're going to be. Keep talking about the past, you're never going to move forward into the present. It's just as simple as that. So we do need to start to hear some things as to where we're going as a club in the summer. We need a bit of clarity so we can all move on and start to, I guess, heal in some ways, because it is a bit toxic with the Moyes in, Moyes out crowd and those in the middle. But congratulations to Crystal Palace. Played a great game. We were awful. 5-2. I guess we go next week. So, Zeveslov, one last thing to say, and that's come on,
you Irons.